The Taliban have told talks in Moscow that they've seized key border crossings with Iran and Turkmenistan. It's seen as a major escalation in their activities since international troops started withdrawing from Afghanistan. In Bangladesh, at least 52 people have been killed after a fire broke out at a factory. Emergency services say they expect the number of dead to rise as many workers were still missing. The United States will send law enforcement officers to Haiti as soon as possible following the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse earlier this week. Haitian police say a group of 28 foreign mercenaries were responsible for the killing. The UN Security Council has voted to extend a cross-border aid operation into Syria from Turkey after a last-minute compromise was reached between Russia and the US.
South Korean police say they found the body of Seoul's mayor, Park Won-soon, more than 7 hours after they launched a search for him. 6 people were injured Thursday in an explosion at a fireworks factory in southern China. Japanese workers continue looking for people missing after flooding and landslides in the country's south. And the U.S. Supreme Court rules that a New York grand jury can see the financial records of President Donald Trump.
We begin here in Tokyo. In just 2 weeks, the Summer Olympics opening ceremony will kick off the world's biggest sporting event under the shadow of the coronavirus pandemic. The countdown to the Games comes with some major changes. Thursday's announcement that spectators will not be allowed at Tokyo area venues has meant a new reckoning for fans and athletes. Spectators are banned in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures, Chiba, Saitama, and Kanagawa. But a limited number of fans will be allowed at events in 5 prefectures, including Fukushima. Officials made a decision on attendance in the northern prefecture of Hokkaido on Friday. The organizers said up to 10,000 people will be allowed to watch soccer games in Sapporo Stadium, which is within 50% of the venue's capacity. They're still considering whether to allow fans at matches which end after 9 p.m.
We are currently telling the organizing committee our thinking that night sessions should be held without spectators.
This dedicated fan has attended the past 7 Olympic Games. He acquired about 100 tickets for himself and his friends for a range of this year's events, including judo and swimming, but all of them will be held behind closed doors.
I'm furious, beyond disappointed. It's 2 weeks before the Olympics. People who wanted to watch the games in person had to plan ahead and schedule their precious time. But now all their efforts were in vain.
In Fukushima, baseball and softball games will be held with fans. Some people expressed concern about the pandemic.
I'm worried that the number of infections could rise because I think cases will increase if people gather.
NHK has learned that a member of the Israeli delegation tested positive for the coronavirus at the airport on Friday. This marks the 4th case to be confirmed among foreign teams. In recent weeks, 2 members of the Ugandan team and an athlete from Serbia were found to be infected. An Olympic staff member also tested positive upon arrival in Japan on Thursday. About 11,000 athletes will compete in the Olympics, and an additional 41,000 people are expected to arrive for the Games. Meanwhile, the torch relay has begun in Tokyo, but the Olympic flame will not travel on most of the routes. Participants in the ceremonial event are lighting the flame without spectators. Officials in South Korea reported a record 1,316 new cases of the coronavirus on Thursday. The Delta variant, first identified in India, is apparently spreading in the country. It's the first time the number of daily cases has topped 1,300. 75% of the infections are concentrated in the area around the capital, Seoul. The government has decided to impose level 4 social distancing rules. They're the highest on the scale. The restrictions will cover the greater Seoul area. They'll take effect next Monday and remain in place for 2 weeks.
I want the people to put up with this situation a little longer so that we can get back to normal life.
The Level 4 rules limit gatherings to 4 people during the daytime and 2 people after 6 p.m. Group demonstrations are banned. Weddings and funerals can only be attended by relatives. Sports events will be held without spectators. The coronavirus restrictions were supposed to be relaxed this month, but tougher measures are being introduced because of the surge in new cases. With Indonesia's medical system under strain amid the spread of the Delta variant, the government is busy setting up a makeshift hospital in Jakarta. More than 80% of hospital beds for COVID patients in the capital are already occupied. This dormitory for Hajj pilgrims is being transformed into a medical center. It has around 1,000 beds and will include an intensive care unit. It'll begin operations on Saturday. Officials are also working on isolation facilities for infected people with relatively light symptoms and plan to add more than 6,000 beds. Around the country, the government has ordered hospitals for COVID patients to increase the number of beds by 40%. However, Indonesia is experiencing an acute shortage of medical oxygen. Frustrations are growing among people as some patients have already died at home without getting treatment. Indonesia on Friday reported over 38,000 cases for the second straight day. Thailand is preparing to impose stricter measures against the coronavirus after the country marked a record daily high of more than 9,200 new infections with over 70 fatalities. The Thai government says starting Saturday, travel across provincial borders will be restricted and that checkpoints will be set up to monitor movement. In the capital and some provinces where there's been a surge in infections, a nighttime curfew will be imposed beginning Monday. Non-essential businesses will be closed while supermarkets and banks will be allowed to open. The public will be asked to work from home as much as possible. The country's healthcare system is stretched to the limit with a shortage of hospital beds reported. A local NGO says many infected people are not able to be hospitalized. People in Bangkok are queuing up, waiting to be tested.
My colleague has been here since 2 a.m. but didn't get it.
More than 5,000 coronavirus cases that include the Delta variant have been reported daily in the country since the beginning of July, despite strict measures. Organizers of the Southeast Asian Games, set to begin in Vietnam in November, have decided to postpone the event until next year in light of the spread of the coronavirus in the region. The decision was made after the Olympic committees of the member states held an online meeting with the Games Federation. The multi-sport event is held every 2 years and brings together athletes from 11 nations. On Thursday, Vietnam reported more than 1,300 new cases, the highest figure ever. The city of Ho Chi Minh has imposed strict measures, including a ban on non-essential outings. The Vietnamese government aims to vaccinate half of the adult population by the end of the year. The president of the Philippines has thanked Japan for donating coronavirus vaccines to his country. Rodrigo Duterte spoke at a ceremony held to mark the arrival of the shipment. A plane carrying around 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine landed at an airbase in the capital on Thursday night. Duterte put a sticker on one of the containers. It had a vaccination campaign logo on it.
Japan continues to be our strong partner in fighting the pandemic. I express my heartfelt gratitude to Japan for all of the assistance you have extended to our country during these challenging times.
The daily number of new infections in the Philippines is hovering at around 5,000. The health ministry says only about 8% of the population has received the first dose of a vaccine. Taiwan received 1 million doses from Japan on Thursday as well. Japan has sent Taiwan more than 2 million doses in total. The first shipment was delivered last month. Japan has also donated around 1 million vaccine doses to Malaysia. U.S. pharmaceutical company Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech say they plan to carry out clinical tests as early as August on an updated version of their coronavirus vaccine to target the Delta variant. The two firms also tested giving a third shot of the current version of the COVID-19 vaccine as a booster against the Beta variant first reported in South Africa. They said the value of neutralizing antibodies was 5 to 10 times higher following a third shot 6 months after the second dose than it was after just 2 shots. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in a joint statement on Thursday that fully vaccinated Americans do not need a booster shot at this time. The two regulators said full vaccination protects individuals from death and severe symptoms in case of infection with the Delta or other variants. Prosecutors in Tokyo have indicted the production studio behind the blockbuster animated film Demon Slayer and its president. They're suspected of evading about $1.2 million in taxes. Kondo Hikaru is the president of the Tokyo-based production company Ufotable. Prosecutors say they hid around $4 million of the company's income from 2015 to 2018. Officials say the firm underreported the company's earnings by excluding some sales at its anime-themed cafes. Sources say the president kept the money he and the company saved by evading taxes in a safe at his home. Tax officials in Tokyo filed charges against the company at the prosecutor's office last year. Ufotable has apologized to fans and all concerned parties. The studio says it'll try to comply with the laws. The animated film Demon Slayer set a box office sales record in Japan by earning over $360 million. The movie has been shown in more than 40 countries and regions. It's a mixed bag in the United States, with the East dealing with flooding rains and the West struggling with drought. Our meteorologist Saika Mori explains.
Hello there. 2 different weather events are happening across the United States. A tropical storm called Elsa is continuously dropping heavy rainfall on the east coast of the country, and dry and hot conditions are worsening the drought conditions over the west. Take a look at this video from New York first. Subway stations were flooded as some people were wading through waist-deep water. Some expressways above ground also were running into trouble as water covered the roads. Meanwhile, in California, a historic drought is ongoing. Some of the state's most important reservoirs are at dangerously low levels. Officials fear some of the reservoirs could empty late this year. People are asked to cut water usage in California. Rainy weather will continue across the east, and this is the west conditions across the west. According to the U.S. Drought Monitor, most of the western United States is dealing with a drought, and 60% of them is experiencing exceptional or extreme drought, so we need rainfall. Rain is in the forecast across the east, but not much rainfall across the western areas. And to make things worse, temperatures remain on the high side and dangerously high side into next week. It'll be 55 on Sunday in Death Valley. Amazing. Las Vegas could see 48 degrees on Saturday. To avoid heat stroke, keep hydrated and don't get too much sun, and spend more time in air-conditioned rooms if possible. Meanwhile, rain has been hitting western Japan. We've already had more than 400 millimeters of rainfall over the past 72 hours or so. More rain is possible, especially over northern Kyushu on your Saturday. For the next 48 hours, maybe up to 300 millimeters possible in the region. Temperature could hit 33 degrees in Tokyo. That could be the hottest temperature of the year so far. That's it for me. Have a nice weekend.